Welcome to the Veterans Impact Show, where our commitment is to help, hope, and healing of our veteran family and our nation. I'm Jim Blythe, a U.S. Navy veteran and a certified senior advisor. Join us as we continue the mission of leadership and commitment to our communities and our great country. Why, you never know where we're going to go or who you're going to meet. We invite you to join in, plug in, and share in what we do. This is your Veterans Impact Show. Hey, good day and welcome aboard. I'm Jim Blythe, U.S. Navy veteran. Cedric is going to be running a little bit late, or he may not be able to join us right now. He's in the middle of something, but I'm here to bring you a really timely, great program today. We've got a Navy rescue pilot. Matter of fact, I've known him for a number of years, but he was there at the same time I was in Vietnam flying for HC-7. So welcome aboard, Mark Liebman. You are an amazing guy. You're an author, you're a pilot, you're a speaker, you're a teacher. What else do you do?
I'm a grandfather.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, Jim. It's always fun to do these programs with you. We have a lot of fun. Some people may not think it's fun, but we have a good time, and also we hope to inform the audience.
Right now, big in the news, happened Saturday night while here in Dallas. Rescue of an F-8 or F-15, the navigation officer, the bombardier, correct?
Yeah, he's technically called the Weapons Systems Officer. In the vernacular of the military, he's known as a WISO. So if I use the term WISO, you know it means Weapons Systems Officer. He's the second crewman in an F-15E, and the Navy flies with electronic warfare officers in the back seat of F-18 Growlers, which is the electronic warfare aircraft, and the Navy flies with a weapons systems officer in the back seats of the F-18's Fs. So yes, Wizzo is he's the guy who does all the weapons work. The guy in the front drives it.
In other words, the bombardier.
Yeah,
Mark, though you did a lot. You were a SAR rescue pilot. You've got somewhere in the neighborhood of nearly 5,000 or over 5,000 hours in both rotor and fixed wing aircraft. You also did a lot of rescues. Take us through kind of what happened and what you and I were talking about before so that our audience gets a feel of what happened.
sure. So first things first, since 1970, how you go about a rescue has changed a lot, but the principles of making a combat rescue have not. What has changed is the technology. And the technology enables you to do things that you couldn't do in 1970 or even in 1991 during Desert Storm. So let's start with the first thing. You got to find the guy. Well, today, everybody carries survival radios, and as soon as he gets on the ground, he comes up on the survival radio, and it has links that give his position and GPS coordinates to everybody on the link. So suddenly everybody knows where he is. That enables the command structure to do a couple things. One, guide us or direct assets to his location, but it also enables you to look at a map, overlay his position on that map, and tell him where the safe zones are. So everybody, everyone on a strike knows where there are what we call bailout areas. There's different terms for them, but basically areas that you can fly to with a jet that's not performing well and that you think you may have to leave. So you get to that area, so it enhances the ability to pick you up. It also makes it more difficult for the bad guys. So the first thing that happens is when he comes out of the airplane, or actually both guys in this case, but the pilot was picked up 48 hours earlier. So I'm going to use the word loosely, out of the picture in a good way. So now we got to find this guy. So he's on the ground, and here's the first thing that the media doesn't understand is the seat that they were showing pictures of, the actual ejection seat, doesn't land where the pilot lands. Because somewhere around, depending on what altitude he goes out of the airplane, somewhere around 10,000 feet or lower if he goes below that, the seat separates from the pilot, or the pilot separates from the seat, and he goes into a parachute, and the ejection seat goes straight down. It contains the beeper. The beeper is the thing that's going buzzing everybody, telling them there's somebody's ejected. So he could land if he went out at 10,000 feet, he could be a mile or two from where the seat touches down when he actually lands on the ground. So again, he gets on the ground, gets out of his parachute, does a quick physical check of himself. Do I got all my bits and pieces? Do I have any injuries? Comes up on the air and says, "Hey, I'm on the ground." And he again, the new survival rate is, I don't want to get into all the details of it, but suddenly everybody knows where he is. Now, so that's the first thing. The second thing that we ascertain is his health. Because if he's badly injured and can't move, that complicates everything. Because that means you got to go get to him where he is physically located at the moment he touches down, or in a short radius from that. This guy apparently was in fairly decent shape, was mobile, and in the first 24 hours, he moved up into the mountains, up to about 7,000 feet, and found a place to hide. It was called, everybody's calling it a crevasse or a crevice. It's absolutely perfect, particularly as if it shields you from people looking around. We also had predators circling the area. So now we had a God's eye view of not only where he was, because we knew from GPS and from his satellite phone, but we also knew what the bad guys were doing. So now we know where he is, we have his health, and he's relatively safe. In other words, he's safe in the fact that he's not near any bad guys. So now the next issue is, how do we go get him? And this is where back in the day and during Vietnam and then even during Desert Storm, we didn't have some of the assets they have today. We had some of the location equipment, but now the Predators or Reapers, whichever model they are, they have weapons. So they have typically have Hellfires, or they may be carrying bombs. We have other assets in the area. So the SAR scene commander now starts marshaling assets, and they can come from everywhere. The press made a big deal about everything stopped in that neck of the world, and it may have, because the Air Force is now, or the CENTCOM, the Air Component Commander, is now marshaling everything he needs to support the rescue. The question is how to get to him, and that is where the fun begins and what's unique about this situation. So imagine he is now, if you look at a map, he's probably, if I remember correctly, he's about 50, 60 miles southwest of Esfahan, which is a major city in Iran. He's up in the mountains. So it's not exactly a place where there's a few people. There's lots of people, and which means there's lots of IRGC, lots of Bajis. And so what we did, and this is where it was to me mind-blowing, we set up what's known as a FARP, Forward Arming and Refueling Point. Two C-130s found this, what they thought was a strip that supported agricultural airplanes, and they land on it, and they find out it's not as firm as they thought it would be, and they get stuck. But anyway, out of the C-130s come four OH-6s, or MH-6s, AH-6s, depending which models they are. And they spread the rotor blades. SEAL Team 6 gets on the MHs, which can carry 6 at a time. There's probably a medic on board, and away they go, because they know where to go in the mountains. They're probably escorted by an AH-6, which has rockets and machine guns to lay some hurt on the bad guys if they're nearby. As it turns out, once they found the guy, there was 9 IRGC members climbing to his position. How far away he was at that time, nobody, it hasn't come out yet, but they were close enough to present a danger to not only the survivor, but to the helicopters. They were eliminated. But now they said, put them on the OH-6, fly them back down to the FARP, the Forward Arming and Refueling Point. So now you got 2 C-130s stuck in the mud. Okay, talking about going to plan B and C. They're trying to dig them out. They can't get them out. And what do you do? Well, this is the United States Air Force and the United States military. And so I'm thinking somebody has already planned for this contingency. They fly in a Air Force Special Operations airplane. It's actually a CASA 295 modified for special operations. It lands on the area where they're at. It doesn't sink into the mud, and they shove 2 of the OH-6s into the back end. Everybody gets on board. They take off and away, and everybody's now on their way home, safe and sound. However,
Nobody
you got 2. Yeah, no Americans hurt other than the pilot. or the weapons system officer. Now, what do you do with the two C-130s? One's an MH and one's a refueling version, and one's a cargo airplane, and the two 086s you left back behind. Well, they called in a strike with two B1s that laid down apparently a lot of 500-pound guided munitions on top of the airplanes. The scenes that you've seen that the Iranians provided of the site where they bombed the C-130s, there's not a whole lot left. The biggest thing left is the landing gear and the engines. So they're not going to get any real intelligence out of those aircraft. So the price we paid was earlier in the day or early in the rescue of the pilot. We had an A-10 that was shot up enough so the guy had, once he got into Kuwait where he was safe, he punched out, and we picked him up. We got the pilot and we got the weapons systems officer. It cost us two C-130s and two M860s. As far as I'm concerned, I'll make that trade any day.
Yeah, that's a good thing. It's an amazing story. And I tell you what, when you start, I was in HC1, which was rescue. We took the pilots out of the drink when they went down the Gulf of Tonkin. You went all the way up into North Vietnam. You were in areas, but you weren't in anything like what they're talking about in the mountain areas, especially that far away. But again, all of the forces that marshaled, that is an amazing story, Mark. You also have an amazing story that I want to talk about. And so I want to show a little video. So Diane, if you could do that video real quick, because Mark has got a documentary he's trying to get done. I want you to know about it. We leave nobody behind.
Yeah, it's called Leave No Man Behind.
So we were sound asleep at 2 o'clock in the morning when I got the word that a pilot had been shot down close to North Vietnam, and you got to launch as soon as possible. And so we did that. We scrambled out to the helicopter. I got a brief from the ops people on the ship on where he's located and the situation at that hand at the time, and we took off. And at the time, and people don't understand this, but back then we flew very basic helicopters. They were armor plated with guns, and that was about it. And they asked me to launch off. Well, I wasn't night trained for night rescues. I had never practiced. We never practiced night rescues at night. It was too dangerous. And you had a helicopter that had basic instruments, had a basic autopilot, but no automatic approach to the water, no hover capability. It was all manual operation. Okay, but why you take off? You take off because a man's life's on the line right now.
So then I'm in the water, and I had a strobe on and some radios, and Jim Spillman started coming out with his helicopter, and that was going okay. It seems like it takes forever when you're sitting there at a lonely spot in the South China Sea in the raft, but so they came out and got over me. So
we came to a hover. At nighttime, you lower the swimmer down instead of daylight 10 and 10 drop, and you position yourself close to him, and then Stretch Acme, my first crewman, says to hold your position. We lowered the swimmer down, and Katie, the swimmer, swam over to him. I backed off.
And swimmer jumps in the water, which they normally do to see if you're physically injured. And they had this device called a horse collar, big kind of a loop thing that you would try to put your arms through, and it would pick you up under the shoulders, under the armpits, and go at the airplane.
A few minutes, and then I heard from his wingman say, "Big Mother, that's my last paraflare." And when he said that, all lights went out. I looked at the instruments and I tried to maintain a stable hover. Well, you don't have the equipment to do that, and you start over controlling, and you get a situation that's called vertigo.
I happened to look over at the gauges, which I probably should have been on it anyway, but we never had any nighttime training doing this stuff. And I noticed we had a nose-up attitude and zero airspeed.
During this time I'm doing this, thank God, I give my credit to my co-pilot and my Stretch, the guy in the back.
The air crew and I at the same time decided we need altitude immediately.
They said, altitude, altitude. When they did that, the helicopter was backing down and toward the water, and the tail rotor was just a few feet off the water.
So we pulled the collective as hard as we could,
pulls up to his armpit, and we went straight vertical for about 200 feet.
And the helicopter flew away. And I looked at the guy in the water and I said, "Where are they going?" He said, "I don't know."
All right, Mark, you knew Spillman, or you know him today.
Yeah, he's still around.
Yeah, and that was a huge experience. That is so amazing because he was flying the UH-2C, the Hooky-Took Sea Sprite, and basically they didn't have a whole lot of instruments. They didn't have a whole lot. So what you're talking about, the difference between Vietnam and even what happened in Desert Storm and what happened Saturday night is amazing because of the technology and all of the things that have been built into our military capability to make sure we get our guys back and get them home. So that's an amazing story. Thank you for relaying that, Mark. Now we're gonna show, if we can, we're gonna show a little bit more of that in a minute when we come back from the break. But I want to talk more about that documentary that you put together. And you have, I don't know how many interviews like that where you interviewed pilots, correct?
Yeah, so the documentary is called HC Leave No Man Behind, and it's about the a Navy squadron called HC-7, which was in existence for about 9 years. It operated in Vietnam and never missed a commitment. It's probably the most highly decorated Navy squadron, at least Navy helicopter squadron in history. And in fact, given the fact we have a Medal of Honor, a bunch of Navy Crosses, a bunch of Silver Stars, it's probably one of the most highly decorated squadrons. But nobody knows our story. So we wanted to tell the story about not only the pilots and the air crew, but also the maintainers, and also get the survivors' perspective.
Let's take a break for just a second. We'll be back. Tell the story of HC-7 and No Pilot Left Behind. I know a little bit more about this because I was there in 1970 with HC-1, and I saw pilots rescue. Let me tell you something. You see a guy get out of a helicopter who's soaking wet and kiss the deck, you know he was glad to make it home. You know. All right, this is your Veterans Impact Show. We're going to be right back after these words from all of our partners. Fairway Independent Mortgage, that's my company, NMLS number 311548, and Fairway Integrative Health. We'll be right back. Talk about the Hope Center as well, where we are taping this show. Thank you for being on board. Thank you for being part of it. And we're your Veterans Impact Show. Welcome back, and thanks to our great sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage, Healing Thine Hearts Ministry, and Symbios Integrative Health. Now, let's get back to this conversation. This is an amazing conversation, and our program is all about help, hope, and healing. Healing Thine Hearts Ministry, Cedric White, amazing in doing marriage counseling to veterans, to active duty military. They go all over the world. This is a great day. Now, Mark, let's continue the conversation as it relates to HC-7 and what they did for 9 years in Vietnam. I believe they were in Desert Storm as well, correct?
No, squadron was gone in 74-ish,
Oh, okay.
75 when they disestablished it, and then gave the helicopters to a reserve squadron called AC-9. So the squadron was literally formed in 1965, 4 or 5-ish, because the Navy was now involved, along with the Air Force, in the bombing of North Vietnam. And we had forgotten all the lessons we had learned in Korea about combat search and rescue. If you ever want to see a great movie about combat search and rescue, go watch the movie The Bridges at Toko Ri. It's based on a book by James Michener. Mickey Rooney was the helicopter pilot, and the tactics that they describe and show in that movie are actually pretty accurate for the time. And it hadn't changed a whole lot, other than the fact that in Vietnam we had survival radios. We had a beeper, so we know in the seats of the airplanes that the jets that were flying over North Vietnam, and so we knew when people ejected. And so the first thing you do is, there's a needle in a radio in the airplane. You can tune to it, and you head towards the survivor. But anyway, so HC-7 operated off North Vietnam, and depending on which detachment you were in, and you were either sitting on the back end of a destroyer or a cruiser, and you could either be on 2-minute alert or 5-minute alert. And when somebody went down on near the beach or near the North Vietnamese coastline, it was your job to go get them. And back in those days, we didn't have a cast of thousands like you just saw what happened. It was a helicopter. You generally got what's called SAR-CAP, Search and Rescue Combat Air Patrol, from aircraft going on the next strike. So they would be vectored over to you to provide close air support. And you had to go find the survivor. And that was the most difficult thing. And then you had to pick him up, sometimes out of the jungle, sometimes out of a rice paddy. If you were lucky, he was in the water, although the water of north of the Gulf of Tonkin is infested with sharks and sea snakes, whose venom is very similar to that of a cobra, which means it's fatal generally. So it was an interesting environment. Anyway, so about 2 years ago, I started a project to raise money to do a movie on HC-7 because nobody's done one, and we raised some money, but not enough. We have a script written, we have the trailer, and we had to stop because we don't have any more money. We Can I give the amount of money we're trying to raise, Jim? I will anyway. We're trying to raise about 200 grand to get the movie finished. We have contacts within some of the big streaming services who say, yeah, bring us the finished product. We'd love to air it. That will generate residuals. The residuals will go into the Navy Helicopter Association's Historical Society and its scholarship fund. And it'll be there for posterity for those of us who played in that war.
Well, I told you I talked with Chuck Wright, who's our Texas Veterans Commission commissioner in North Texas, close friend of mine, and he's going to connect us to a foundation that may help you out and fund it. But I want people to know that a lot of people don't realize all of the things that happened Saturday really started getting perfected, I think, in Vietnam in terms of the piloting of the planes, the locating of people. It's totally different now, but the basics are still there. And we saved a lot of lives.
Yeah,
a lot of pilots could go down in North Vietnam that we couldn't get to. Those guys ended up being POWs, and a bunch of them you and I know.
Yeah, so Jim, the big changes is one, the helicopters are far more capable. So neither the H2 or the H3, which I flew, was originally designed to be shot at. They were not ballistically tolerant. I won't get into all the issues that you have when you came under fire. So the H-60, which was designed originally for the Army, it was designed to take rounds, take enemy fire. So it was a far more capable helicopter. So physically, or the machine that you were flying was faster, more maneuverable, could take a few hits. But then the electronics is the second big change. Like I said, there's all kinds of things that I call Gucci gear that enable you to find the survivor. So that the electronics have changed, and that's not only the stuff on the ground that the pilot carries or the survivor carries, but it's also in the helicopter, and it's also in other assets that are brought to bear. So all that electronic technology is there. And then the third thing that's a game changer are the drones, because these UAVs have long on station times. So in Vietnam and in Desert Storm, you were limited to the gas on board the SAR-CAP. So quite often the SAR-CAP guys would sit there in orbit, they'd run out of gas, have to go run to a tanker, and then eventually they get back. Sometimes they were relieved on station, sometimes they weren't. So you had gaps in in your cover as you're penetrating into enemy airspace. And yes, the tactics the Air Force used and the tactics the Navy used are slightly different. We tend to be single helicopters, maybe 2 ships. Air Force uses a lot more. Doesn't matter. The fact that you have to penetrate into enemy airspace to a point where everybody in the world, bad guys, good guys, know where you're going. And the guys in the CSAR community, which has now been melded or molded or put together with the special operations community, are incredibly brave because they know they're going into a hot area.
Those that run into the fire. All right, we're going to be back in just a minute to talk about those that run into the fire. This is your Veterans Impact Show. We're here for you. We're here to bring you the latest. We just talked about one of the most amazing things that people don't know goes on with the SCAR Rescue. But we'll be right back after these words. Thank you for being part of Veterans Impact Show. Share, join with us, be a part of this, get the word out to all your friends, especially if they were Navy. We'll be right back. Welcome back, and thanks to our great sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage, Healing Thine Hearts Ministry, and Symbios Integrative Health. Now, let's get back to this conversation. Mark, we always have a great time together. It's a blast. You are a great writer. I got to tell people, if you want to know more about what Mark did or what went on in Vietnam, go look at markliebman.com. Liebman. MARC. Excuse me, my producer wife. Here's the cool thing. There's a book called Cherubs 2, and there's another book called Big Mother 40. They're going to give you a lot of information, but he's got a tremendous set of books. The Age of Sail books in the 1800s, 1700s, which is really amazing group of books. I would like to talk about your latest book. So if we could do that real quick, because there's another thing I need to ask you about that you're involved with, which is the National Defense Briefing Series. So tell us about your latest book that's coming out.
Yeah, so on the 24th of March, if I remember correctly, the last book in my Age of Sail series, which starts during the American Revolution and ends around the War of 1812, or actually during the War of 1812. The book is called Prizes of Opportunity. There are 8 books in the series. The novel Prizes of Opportunity takes place during the War of 1812 and the period shortly before that. It's the 8th book in the series. You can get it on Amazon and 13 other distributors, and I think now it's into 3 or 4 library books. It's available in ebooks, it's available in print, and it's also available in audiobooks. It was a hoot to write. I learned a lot, and also, if you want to learn more about the American Revolution or the period between 1775 and 1815-ish, go read my blog. It's on my website. I talk about things that you do not read or do not learn in most history books. So again, prize opportunity. There's lots of naval action in it. It's the U.S. Navy and the fledgling. It's not really fledgling, but the U.S. Navy and the Royal Navy. And as the War of 1812 proved out, the U.S. Navy was an ugly surprise to the Royal Navy because we had better ships that were crewed by able seamen who used tactics that the Royal Navy did not understand initially, and it cost them many frigates. Yes, we lost some ships, but generally when the U.S. Navy lost ships during War of 1812, we were outnumbered. But Prizes of Opportunity gets into a lot of that. I get into the tactics, some of the weapons, but also some pretty interesting characters that you'll find interesting. But anyway, it's available now, and as I tell people, it's probably the last Age of Sail book I wrote because they are very, very difficult to write.
Well, I'm looking forward to getting that one. It's going to be great. Now, let's talk about the National Defense Briefing Series. That's one of the most enjoyable things that I get to participate in. And basically, it's the Navy League, the Air Forces Association, the AUSA, the Jewish Veterans Association have come together to provide world-class speakers. This one coming up, we have an incredible speaker. Tell us about it, Mark.
Yeah, so for the record, I'm a member of the board of the National Defense Briefing Series, and we have 2 missions. Mission one is to hold these events in which we bring in knowledgeable speakers to talk about critical national security issues. And so we're doing a series on called Great Power Competition hyphen, this one's called Intelligence. It's how our intelligence capabilities compare to those of our peers and our adversaries. So the second mission is to raise money for the 5 veterans organizations that we, the board, are all representative, and the money stays that we raise in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So the speaker this month is the former deputy director of the Central Intelligence Agency. His name is John McLaughlin. He was a director in the early teens. I can get you the exact dates if I remember correctly. And he was the number 2 guy in CIA. And he's going to talk about great power competition, intelligence, and the world we live in today. Should be an interesting program. You can go to ndbsinc.org, click on events. You'll see his picture, and then you can click on it and read more about it. And then register. It's $50. It includes dinner. And the best part about the program is he'll speak for about 30, 35 minutes, and then he shuts up, and if you're in the audience, you can ask questions, and there's no limitations on the questions in terms of the topics, as long as it's geared to the topic that's being discussed. And we find that's the most interesting part of the thing or the event. We also bring in junior ROTC from the local high school, some of them who want to come, as well as members of college ROTC units. And here's one of the more interesting things, well, as you get to in a second, which I want to talk about, is quite often the best question of the night comes from one of the kids, which is to us is gratifying. Also, we record the event, and then in about 2 or 3 weeks after the event, we'll put it up on our YouTube channel, and you can watch it in its entirety from the comfort of your living room. And that's great for people who don't live in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. But it's April 19th. It costs $50. You can register now. We cut off the registration the Monday before the event because that's when we have to guarantee the number of heads and the number of meals. But it should be interesting. We've had intelligence, we've had the Navy's perspective, the Air Force's perspective. We've had a bunch of interesting people, all of whom are at the level of John McLaughlin. So we've had former chiefs of naval operations, chiefs of the Air Force. We had 3- and 4-star generals. We've had experts on the field, on specific fields within the defense establishment, so to speak. And again, the briefings are unclassified, they're non-political, and they're fascinating to watch.
The information that will be there is amazing. I have been to, I think, every one of them so far, and I have met some incredible people. Not only do you get a chance to ask questions, but you're going to get a chance to rub shoulders with some amazing people as well. General John Campbell, who started this, put it together with everybody. It's amazing what all they have been able to do and who they've gotten to come and talk, and how absolutely timely this is going to be. Because war today is not exactly what it was 40, 50 years ago when I was in Vietnam. It's a situation today where all of the intelligence makes a huge difference. So that's going to be a great thing. Now, let's go back again. You want to go to ndbs.inc.org. What is it? I'm sorry.
You got it right on the bottom of the screen.
Oh, okay. Because I can't see that. The National Defense Briefing Series, the NDBS, that is a great place to go. If you're in Dallas-Fort Worth, you want to know, what if you're a history teacher? What if you're just want to know? Well, that's a place to go. And then that video will be available at some time in the future. Let's go back also to your Leave No Warrior Behind. I think that's going to be a tremendous documentary because it's going to capture so much about what happened. You know, Mark, I had a really close friend in college, and I didn't know he was a Navy SEAL till late one night when we were celebrating after an exam. He had been dropped into North Vietnam, by HC7 with a partner who was a Force Recon Marine. And he talked about some of the things they did, which blew my mind. I didn't know we had that much intelligence going on inside of North Vietnam. And you know what? I kind of wondered at the time, well, is this the Rebel Yell speaking or is this Jim speaking? Turns out I met his partner that was a Force Recon Marine. It was for real. Also, Mark, I talked about your book, Cherubs 2. And after I read Cherubs 2, do you remember the phone call I called you and I said, hey, Mark, this isn't fiction. This is fact. I was there on the Oriskany. And we both laughed about it.
Yeah, so Jim, just for the record, the Cherubs 2 and Big Mother 40 are novels. I have certified the fact that they are novels and they are fiction to the United States Navy, so I don't wind up with guys with guns and badges showing up at my front door.
Oh, okay. So it's
But they are based on, they are historically accurate. They are operationally accurate. So from that perspective, that's why I think they struck a chord. And they struck a chord with a lot of other people who read them, particularly those who were there who were there at the time. I will always say one thing about Big Mother 40. I sent it to a couple of flag officers to write reviews, flag officers who I had served with, and both of them came back and said, "Hey, this is a primer on how to do combat SAR." I went, okay.
Yeah.
But anyway,
one of the things too that I think is so amazing is the camaraderie. So if you were in HC1, if you were in HC7, and I don't know what the East Coast squadrons were who did the SAR rescue in the Navy, if you were in, you're going to want to see this documentary. We're going to get it out and get it going because it's going to be all about who was out there and saved people's lives. And I got to tell you, now you've got one other thing in your website that I am dying to go and start looking at, and you call it something in the neighborhood of dumb things I've done in airplanes.
Yeah, fun and dumb things I've done in airplanes.
Yeah.
So Jim, by the way, the East Coast Squadron was HC2, which I spent some time in. So they provided SAR dets on aircraft carriers. HC4 provided single plane dets on other ships. But HC2 was also split off into small dets that went on board the back end of cruisers and destroyers to go do special operations or special missions, of which I did a fair amount of that. Anyway, so fun and dumb things I've done in airplanes. And airplanes is a generic term for I should say used aircraft. So there's stories that I've done or things I've done in an airplane, like fly or helicopter, like fly underneath the Verrazano Narrows Bridge and got the craps. Yeah, who got the craps scared out of me. I still have nightmares about it because we were just boring holes in the sky. We need to get some flight time. So we said, hey, there's a Verrazano Narrows Bridge. It's 250 feet in the air. Let's just trundle along at 50 feet off the water, and we'll fly under the bridge. So we did. Unfortunately, we didn't know that they were painting the bridge at the time.
Oh no!
And as we're passing under the bridge, a bucket of paint, I remember this vividly, comes tumbling down, turning over and over. Each time it went over, it would dump out more paint, and also with it was a ladder. And the ladder passed and the bucket passed within 100 feet of the rotor blades of our H3.
Whoa.
Yeah. So that's one that's in there. There's also another one where I had gone down to visit my mother, who had just been diagnosed again with cancer that would ultimately kill her. And my dad said, "Are you sure you want to fly home?" I say, "Oh, Dad, I can hack this. I was in my early 30s, ace of the base. I can fly anything, anywhere, anytime." And I thoroughly scared the shit out of myself because I was mentally not able to focus because of what I had just witnessed or just been told, that my mother was dying and probably wouldn't live for another year. And so I was emotionally distraught. Where I was going was all socked in. And I literally had to fess up to the air traffic controller and said, "Hey, I'm lost. Help." So, but there's other stories there. And also on my YouTube channel, I have interesting videos about flying. One of which is about why helicopters are difficult and dangerous to fly. There's another one. There's a bunch of stuff on there. Some it's about foreign affairs. Some of it's about aviation. I'm about to record one this week about what I call the 10 issues that we faced in the 1790s that we still face today. Top 10 political issues, I should say, that we still face today.
You mean to tell me that nothing is different?
Correct.
So
I apologize for the phone. I thought I had turned it off.
well, that's okay. We'll leave it on because everybody knows what we're doing. Hey, it's such a wonderful experience to get to talk to you and get to know you. And if people want to get to know you more, go to Mark's website.
MarkLiebman.com. That's correct.
BMAN.com and take a look at his Age of Sail series. Those are so great with Jocko and the guys, and also go back and do the Big Mother 40 Cherubs too. I've read quite a few of the books, not all of them. I can't wait to read this newest one because it's the last one, but it's also, you really kind of intrigue me because you're talking about many of the political issues that were going on in the United States in the 1700s that we still face today. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So the political issues, it's kind of interesting because there are two or three forehead slapping moments when I was doing the research on this series. One of which is the fact that we still are dealing with some of these same issues. The context has changed, but the issue is the same. The other thing is that there are some cultural changes that the American Revolution or our founding fathers don't get credit for, but they were. But they actually started during the American Revolution or began to pick up a head of steam. And everybody likes to say, well, the American Revolution's inspired the French for the French Revolution. Yeah, and about 20 of them, 20 others in the world in the next 20 to 25 years. But there are some cultural issues that you began to see, or I began to find as I was researching this period. One of which is the emancipation of the American woman, how it starts, where it goes, the changes in the U.S. legal system, things like we take for granted today, divorce, began to change right afterwards. The ability of women to own property, which they couldn't do under English law. The ability for women to go to colleges and universities, which they couldn't do um, during the colonial period. And there's a whole bunch of other things that come out from a cultural perspective that the American Revolution started. And yes, it took, I know all the women watching will say, yes, it took up to 1924 before we got the right to vote and equal opportunity act in the 1960s. Yeah, I get it. But but when you look at it from terms of generations, it's not very many generations. So when you look at women going to law school or medical school or being admitted to it, it was only 2.5 generations from the end of the American Revolution, which is, yeah, it sounds a lot like 50 years, but that's a sea change and in society. And also today, I just saw this figure, and what gobsmacked me is in 2025, more women graduated with 4-year degrees than men.
All right. With that note, let's take a break because we'll be right back to finish up this program. This has been an amazing show talking about what's going on with a Navy SAR rescue pilot. This Veterans Impact Show, we're here for you. Welcome back, and thanks to our great sponsors, Fairway Independent Mortgage, Healing Thine Hearts Ministry, and Symbios Integrative Health. Now, let's get back to this conversation. About time to bring this program back into the dock. This has been an amazing time to be with Mark Liebman, U.S. Navy SAR helicopter rescue pilot. An amazing story that you told about what actually happened here just a few days ago. Mark, do you think that what we're going to see is a change that will bring about the end of this war in Iran sooner rather than later? I'm just throwing a loaded question out there.
Yeah, so you're asking me to make a prediction.
Yeah.
So my view is that President Trump did the right thing. I think that the United States military or the intelligence community may have underestimated the resilience of the IRGC and the Basij in their ability to maintain control of the country. However, I think that control is slowly eroding. It's a question of how long will the Iranian people wait until they attempt again to gain control. The problem is that they being the Basij and the IRGC, have all the guns, and they are not afraid to turn them loose on the population. So the next question is how do you balance that equation to enable the people to take control? So I think if I was make a prediction, by the end of this year, you'll see a different government around. I would also like to think it will be one that is much more friendly to not only the United States and Israel, but also to its neighbors. And the world will be a better place. And by the way, that's a subject of an article I'm writing right now
All right.
for a
Hey,
publication. But anyway,
this has been a fantastic opportunity to talk with you. I'd like to say thank you again for being on board. Go take a look at Mark's website. Go take a look at the NDBS website. Also, take a look at Healing Thine Hearts Ministries. Cedric does an amazing job in marriage counseling. He and his wife, Michelle, also our Heart Fellowship Church here in Dallas. We're growing, we're blowing. This is a great place to be. Let's also talk about Symbiosis Integrative Health, how they're helping to turn not only police officers, first responders, veterans, and people who need help with pain management, medication management, and getting back on their feet and going. It's amazing. It's done an amazing job for me. I'm a volunteer there. Now, the last thing I need to talk about is the company I work for, Fairway Independent Mortgage. We're nationwide. We're even in Hawaii, and we're the largest non-bank mortgage company in the nation. We're here to give you the best opportunity for home ownership, to be able to enjoy that. What is the biggest wealth building asset in the United States and in many countries? That's real estate. You can own your own home. If you're a veteran and you don't understand the benefits of a VA home loan, man, give us a call. Look us up. Know about me? Just take a look here on veteransimpactshow.com. Look me up, send me a message. A lot of people do, and I really appreciate it. And if you've got a program, if you've got somebody you'd like for me to talk to, I'm all in, because we're here to serve with help, hope, and healing, of showing what veterans can do in our community. And one of the things that I tell veterans is you need to be out there in the community, showing up, suiting up, and being a part, and be a mentor, be a grandfather to the grandfatherless and a father to the fatherless. We as veterans need to lead the way. We as veterans need to be part of what's going on. And in doing so, we can help bring this nation back together, because we've done it before. We can do it again. So please tune in, share, join Veterans Impact Show. We're here for you, so you be here for us. I like to close with a prayer. Lord God of the universe, I just thank you so much for this opportunity to reach out to all of my fellow veterans and citizens throughout the world and say, hey, we're here to bring you a message of help, hope, and healing by talking about veterans and what they do in our communities and throughout our nation. Thank you, dear God, for all of the wonderful things you've done to bless us, to take care of us. And dear God, please bless and take care of all of our soldiers and sailors and Marines, airmen, as they run into the fire instead of away from the fire, as they stand up for you, dear God, throughout the world. thank you so much for all you do for us. I pray this in your holy name. Thank you and amen. That's Veterans Impact Show. We're here for you. We'll be back next week to provide you with great help, hope, and healing.